Hey there riders, MotoJourno Chris here, and the talk of the town is Ducati's new Streetfighter V4, so let's have a quick look at what's on offer. But first, a bit of background. If you know the history of the Ducati Streetfighter, its original naming was a bit on the controversial side. A Streetfighter is, strictly speaking, a sports bike that's been stripped back, performance orientated, but a naked bike by customization. To the purists out there, especially in the customization scene, Ducati naming a factory machine a Streetfighter was a bit of a betrayal of that history. With that being said, you couldn't argue with the Ducati Streetfighter being the embodiment of a Streetfighter. It was an absolute monster, featuring an 1199cc Desmosedici L-twin power plant with 155 horsepower and weighing in at just 169 kilos dry, featuring high-spec components, especially on the up-spec S model, which gained Ohlins suspension and forged wheels. Later, a Streetfighter V4 S was released, this time featuring a Desmosedici 849cc L-twin and boasting a claimed peak power figure of 132 horsepower, also weighing in at 169 kilos dry, or with a wet weight of 199 kilos, and offering a lower cost of entry in comparison to the earlier Streetfighter. Now for 2020, Ducati have revived the Streetfighter line, and as the name suggests, we're getting the 1103cc Desmosedici Stradale V4 power plant, with the latest generation boasting 208 horsepower with a dry weight of 180 kilos, or just under 200 kilos at the curb, fully fueled and ready to go on the S model. Add the full racing Ducati Performance Akrapovic exhaust and you bump the power up to 220 ponies and lose 6 kilos, which ain't bad, although it's sure to cost a pretty penny. The 90-degree V4 is rotated rearward by 42 degrees, centralizing mass, and features a counter-rotating crankshaft with a twin pulse firing sequence. There's a bore and stroke of 81 by 53.5mm, and compression is run at a relatively high 14:1. There's dual injectors per cylinder with full ride-by-wire and 42mm elliptical throttle bodies. I'm not going to go into too much detail here as it could fill its own video, and this is the V4 power plant out of the Panigale. Electronics are also extensive with riding modes, power modes, cornering ABS Evo, Ducati traction control Evo 2, Ducati wheelie control, Ducati slide control, engine brake control, and auto tyre calibration so that everything still works when you put on a different set of tyres. Then there's Ducati Power Launch and a Ducati Quick Shifter, both up and down, and that is the Evo 2 version. There's a strong resemblance to the original Streetfighter 2. The trellis frame is gone, but the silhouette is similar with the modern thinner headlights and LED unit that's compact and similarly orientated. The overall lines are sharper though, and everything's a bit more integrated, and I do have to admit I really like the futuristic styling. Raised bars offer a compromise between sport and comfort, with Ducati describing ergonomics as sport style, with an 845mm seat height, 60mm of foam thickness for comfort on the seat, and moderated foot peg positioning, in other words, less rear set and aggressive than the Panigale. Also of note is the winglets, 2 on each side generating 28 kilograms of downforce at 270 kilometers per hour, while also helping radiator flow through speed. Now obviously this is probably not a feature that most people are going to be able to take advantage of on the road, however it is a real nod to Ducati's MotoGP efforts. On the chassis side of things, we see Ducati's front frame, derived from their MotoGP development and using the engine as a load-bearing member. The front frame weighs just 4 kilos and is attached directly to the upper crankcase and the cylinder head, with the crankcase also providing the rear suspension attachment point and swing arm pivot point. There's also an underseat trellis subframe, as well as cast aluminium high truss single-sided swing arm, so they are maintaining that iconic feature with the single-sided swing arm. The regular Streetfighter V4 runs Showa 43mm big piston forks with full adjustability, a Sachs steering damper and a Sachs shock absorber, also offering full adjustability. On the S model, there's Ohlins Nix 30 forks, a TTX 30 rear shock, and Ohlins steering damper, all of which are controlled by the Ohlins Smart EC 2.0 control system with a new objective-based tuning interface. Very fancy. In other words, electronic suspension with the Ducati Electronic Suspension Evo system in command. Both models feature semi-floating 330mm rotors with radially mounted Stylema Brembo 4-piston calipers and a 245mm rear rotor with a dual-piston caliper, along with cornering ABS. Other points of note are the inclusion of a 5-inch TFT display, full LED lighting including daytime running lights, auto-off indicators, and the Ducati multimedia system, while the Streetfighter V4 S boasts Marchesini forged aluminium 3-spoke wheels. Having ridden the Streetfighter 848 a number of years ago and had a short spin on the Panigale V4, it's certain to say that the new Streetfighter V4 will be a real weapon and carries on Ducati's no-holes-barred approach to these offerings, with that direct connection to their Panigale models from which they are derived. The early Streetfighters were a real departure from the more staid nature of many naked bikes back in the day, with a few exceptions, which had been detuned and made much more rider-friendly. In comparison, you got a fire-breathing, full-power, aggressive naked bike with all the top-shelf components, not a bike built to a strict budget and stripped down to match. That V4 power plant is really something else too, so it's great to see it being slotted into some more model options and boasting Ducati's modern, relatively low maintenance schedule with 12,000 km or 7,500 mile service intervals and 24,000 km or 15,000 mile valve clearance adjustment. Also, while the V4 and the V4s are high-spec models, the S receives that Ohlins suspension loadout with Ducati Electronic Suspension alongside the Marchesini forged wheels with pricing yet to be announced. However, back in the day with the original base Streetfighter model, it came in slightly below the equivalent Panigale model and was about 3,000 Australian dollars less, with a bit of variance over the years, so it'll be interesting to see whether that pattern is observed here. To put that into context, that was about 10 to 15% lower than the Panigale model. So what do you think of the new Ducati Streetfighter V4? Is it a standout in the hypernaked category in your mind, or what's this bike's toughest competition? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to sub and hit that notification bell if you've enjoyed the video. As always, stay safe out there, and thanks for watching.